do the honor of reading.
All right. Yeah, 3 o'clock. All right. First item on the agenda is oath of office for the newly appointed board member. Is it Dan or Danny?
Dan.
Dan.
Either way, Danny.
Okay. Nance. And Danny, you need to read this out loud and sign it, please.
I, Danny Nance, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability, discharge all duties of the Water Board in Oskaloosa, Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law.
That works.
Amen.
This means I'm no longer the rookie.
That's right. You just got status
Well,
elevated.
I should have scotch in my water. Are you, sir?
Good.
All right. Agenda item number 2 is to approve the agenda. Any changes or modifications?
I had an email from the city manager late Friday afternoon after this had already gone out about agenda item number 9, which is the consideration discussion of change order number 1 for DeLong Construction. And as the board had authorized a $25,000 contingency for this project, it was the opinion at that time that the change order did not necessarily need to be approved because that contingency was in place. This is something that is new for me with that contingency. And I guess maybe the mayor's got perspective on it as well, that they've had more practice doing that. There would be some insight to follow.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing where if there was something that needed to be done on the fly, this enables Chad to be able to make that call without having to call everybody together. So as far as I was concerned, yeah, this was really a redundant thing. I mean, it's nice to have a vote on it, but certainly not necessary. And it would be my opinion that the board has implied assent by virtue of giving you the dollars to work with.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that we had done that, but we had
Yes.
did that up to what, 20?
I think it was up to $25,000 was the number that was used for this project.
Yeah, so in this case, it was a culvert that was pretty well corroded out.
Yes.
They weren't able to dig under it. So in theory, it would have stopped the project if you hadn't made the call to say, yes, go ahead and replace that culvert, $1,000 is something we can live with. And then it takes the board and gets them out of the uncomfortable situation of having to approve something that was already done. This way, they front-ended that and put the approval up front that, yes, we trust your judgment for this amount of money.
So we just need to delete that agenda item.
I would think that
Yeah.
If we have a vote on it, then all of a sudden kind of deflates what we did in the previous meeting, it seems to me like.
Yeah.
It would also change the 25% by $250, but it's a small amount. But if we keep changing the total number, then the contingent also changes with it.
Well, I think you've still got your bid. That's locked in.
Okay.
And then you've got that contingency that Chad can work with.
Okay.
And so, no, it wouldn't move that number. What it does is chew up $1,000 of what you gave him before.
Okay, okay. Yeah, which is the way that we would want it
Yeah.
to be.
So how do we stay abreast of change orders then?
I can continue to forward them to you as part of the packet, we just won't have to vote on them. And to this point, this is the only one,
Yeah.
the only thing that has been above and beyond that's happened with that project. So, but I did want to have that discussion as we were talking about the agenda.
All right, any other discussion about the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, removing item number 9 from the agenda.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item number 3, reorganization of the Board of Trustees. As it has been my pleasure to serve as the chairman of this board for the last 12 months, I'm more than willing to turn the reins over to someone else. And so, do we have any nominations for chair. We used to do this in a rotating fashion when there were just 3 of us on the board. But now that there's 5, I assume we need to have nominations and a vote.
And the offices are chair and vice chair,
Chair and secretary.
chair and secretary.
And that's what has been historically, yes.
That's probably what's in the
And-
bylaws, or whatever we've got.
So have we changed the bylaws then? Officially changed the bylaws to reflect this process, the new process?
As far as,
As far as
The reorganization?
appointing officers.
no.
Is there anything in
There
our
isn't. I don't know
code
that there's
or?
anything that specifically talks about this.
So, nothing to change. Good.
Well, this is- Now we get to nominate. Where's Joe?
Joe's gone.
You can keep it, correct?
Well, I suppose.
Well, I nominate the incumbents then.
That's easy. Now, I have to nominate someone.
So your nominations, and then you need a second, or?
Yes.
Okay. I would second the nomination of Mike Wood for president.
For president. Running against Donald Trump.
Chairman.
Any other nominations?
I would move that the nominations be closed.
Man, thank
The day is getting darker as we go.
you. Well, it's not that hard of a job. I don't mind.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we need a secretary.
You could nominate a secretary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I'll second.
Any further nominations?
I would move that the nominations be closed.
Second. All in favor of Kevin Tack as the new secretary of the Water Board of Trustees?
Aye.
Aye.
When's this
Opposed?
effective?
Right now.
Take notes.
You don't even have to do that. So you just have to
Yep.
run the
Sign
meeting when I'm not here.
Yeah, and sign the vouchers, right?
Yeah, I'll need a signature.
All right. Approve the minutes of the June 20, 2016 regular meeting. I read the minutes, but I wasn't here, so I don't know
I read them,
if they
it
were
looked fine.
accurate or not.
Covered what I remember. Yep. I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item number 5, approve the invoices and the financial statements. It's nice that we get these prior to.
One comment that I see that DeLong has invoiced us for a percentage of the Carbonado project. Somewhere around, what is it,
140,
140?
it's 154,000, and then there is retainage,
Yep.
so it drops it down to 146 that's payable.
Okay, and my question comes from last month's invoices where we had bought some valves from Clow Valve, and I think there was maybe some pipe as well. Are all of these numbers totaling up to what we allotted for the Carbonado project?
It will,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
it will.
So they're all rolling up to the same,
Yes.
for the same project?
Yeah,
Which
between
is
the,
the 400,000 total?
well,
No,
DeLong's will be the 400,000.
okay.
And then we will have money for Garden on inspection services,
Yep.
as well as they've got some other hours that they've billed. And then we had Clow for valves and hydrants. This project was budgeted at $550,000.
Okay.
So the $400,000 in the contract, plus the inspection services and other engineering services, as well as valves and hydrants, will fall into that $550,000
Okay. Very good.
frame.
Is there a project tracking sheet that the board could have that would show that? So kind of a running tab of,
There's nothing that we've done that way previously, so I don't,
We do have the running tab from DeLong.
yes.
As to how much they have
yes.
invoiced of what quantities they have invoiced us for and how much are yet to come.
Yes.
But the others, the other 150,000, we don't have a running tab, right?
Not specifically, it would be, the other thing it would be in is in the monthly reports. The capital line item
Yep.
tracks that as well.
Okay. But that includes like 23 and Carbon
Right.
Auto
It does.
Right.
and
And the rest of the-
KL.
Whatever, yeah, whatever we have for
Yeah.
capital, yes,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah,
For the you keep tabs on the different projects to see where we are budget-wise. Or
Yeah.
Is there,
It's
is there something internally you could just create and
Yes.
and send to the board? The public financial management, 4,000, was that for the services they provided prior to the?
Yes. Because it was not an expense that we had budgeted this year. And so, in talking to them about coming in to perform those services, they agreed that they would bill us in July. And that was after we'd already amended our budget in January.
So was June the first month for the monthly billing? There's July.
They're due in July.
Yep.
They went out in June. In June, the readings happened. And then those bills
They left here then.
left here in June, but they weren't due until July 15th.
So what you're showing on this end of June financial is
Mhm.
just money that you've collected by the end of June, correct?
Right, and that's gonna have to do with,
And we've seen, as soon as some of those bills did go out, we did have customers coming in to pay them
right,
as soon as they received it. So there was a little bit of a roll through that bumped up.
On page 11, there's a Visa payment, $1,249 for cyber insurance.
right.
Is that to Anderson, or where are we?
It was through Anderson, but it was through his company, so I had to contact them to get it set up.
Okay. What does that cover?
Everything we discussed last month.
Okay.
That was the thing that was approved last month to go ahead and to be able to get the
Of online payments.
online payments up and running was that insurance.
Okay.
So there's a company called Anderson
Anderson Insurance Services.
that's taking care of the online security.
That's our local agent, is Jim Anderson. And then he's, in the different companies that he has at his disposal, worked through to find someone that could meet our needs for protection for the online payment option for customers. And that was something that was discussed by the board, I think in the May meeting, that they wanted to have that in place. And so we brought that to last month's meeting, and we're looking at the different options, and that was the one that kind of checked all the boxes that we needed to have.
Just to make sure that if there is a security breach, that the water department is covered for any potential liabilities.
Has a liability.
Yeah. And Anderson Insurance also has our general liability, our property insurance, our equipment insurance, everything is workers' comp.
As of last meeting, the coverage was not confirmed. Has it been confirmed, Matt?
I can go grab that.
Okay.
Do you want me to go grab that piece of paper?
Uh, Yeah, I think it would be of interest. Thank you.
Water loss is 1.77 for June?
Negative, because of all now we have all the billing that's rolled through.
Yeah, I think that's really, that monthly billing is really gonna help us get on top of that.
Yeah.
To know just what our problem is, if we have a problem.
Right.
Which it looks like you still do, because the percentage for the year was only down 2%, even with that extra reading that we had in June. Did I figure that right? Is that what you had in mind?
I don't.
For the year?
It sounds in the neighborhood, yes. I don't remember specifically what the numbers were, but it did. It did drop it.
So with Highway 23, no leaks out there?
Well, it's interesting, we've had a couple places where it was swampy,
Yeah.
just dried up. Where we had cattails and standing water that there is no longer.
Okay.
And so that has taken care of some of that. Some of the other areas, I haven't been out there in the last 2 weeks to look.
One of the training seminars that Amy Miller, our clerk, went to was put on by Iowa Rural Water Association. They had training specialists come out, and they did a piece on what is acceptable water loss, affordability of rates, and different things like that. So their statement was greater than 15% equals poor, 5 to 15% is acceptable, and less than 5% is equal. The goal of every system should be 10% loss or less.
Yeah, everything that I've ever read on that, put out by the American Water Works Association, would say 15% is good.
That's a good benchmark.
Yeah. But I think rural water obviously tightened that up a little bit.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That's why when it is showing 35 and 40%, has me very concerned. Has me concerned that the DNR is going to come to us and want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoices and financial statements.
Any other discussion?
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item number 6 is the customer forum. This item is the item reserved to receive comments from the community or customers for concerns whether or not they are included in the current agenda. The community is encouraged to come and speak before the Water Board of Trustees and asked to keep statements brief. Any questions are to be asked of the Water Department staff and Board of Trustee members prior to speaking to the full Board of Trustees, so concerns may be properly researched and answered away from the meeting. Comments are to be directed to the Board of Trustees only.
I got a phone call a couple hours ago, customer concern that they had to put their full social security number in online to sign up for online billing. Want to know if there was alternative last 4 digits or something we could do, or if he could stop in to give you that information. He was comfortable with you having the information, just not putting it out there online.
And the only way to access it is to fill that part out so we can change it to date of birth. It has to just be something that's in the information tab on the customer's account. So it can even be as much as phone number if we'd rather switch it to something like that.
Address?
No. No, it has to be, it'll have to be one of the boxes that we fill in. So it'll have to be social security, driver's license, date of birth. It could be cell phone or landline, but then we have to be very specific because we have separate boxes for those, so. That was the best way for us to get the customer's account information updated, but I think that date of birth would work also.
Because a driver's license number, a cell phone number, or a landline, somebody may not fill any one of those in. Somebody could fill in a landline and a driver's license. Somebody could fill in just a cell phone.
Right, so I mean, all it's gonna take is,
But everybody should fill in a date of birth,
right,
right?
yes. So if we don't have that currently on their file, they'll have to call in, give us that information to access it. So I need to contact them to find out what it takes to switch it, and if anybody that's currently online, is that
Can it be either
gonna?
or? Can they
No.
put in their social security?
No, it's
or
gotta
their-
be.
one or the other?
Yes, it'll have to be one or the
Is the system defaulted to the social security number now?
other. It is.
Okay. So if we were to flick that default over to,
I don't know what it does with the other 60 people that have already signed up.
I mean, presumably you wouldn't lose the data.
Right, I just don't know, like, my personal one, if I go in and change that and have to put in my date of birth,
Do you still have access?
yeah, I don't know if I still have access if I go in and switch that now, that's my concern. But
Sign
what about-
it
they
all
can-
over again.
What about the last four of the?
We can't do that because the
Okay.
field requires all those.
Okay, so you can't put asterisks or
No.
wild cards until the last four?
No.
Okay.
So we need to research that?
I will.
I mean, I can certainly understand why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yep, I'll get a hold of them tomorrow and find out.
Okay. Is there action that could be done before the next board meeting? Okay.
Yeah,
We don't have to wait.
I could probably
another
fix it tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
If I can, if I just want to make sure it's not going to affect the other people. If it is, I want to shoot them an email to let them know that that has changed so that they have to set it
Okay.
back up. I just want to cover all those bases too.
Okay. Do you have a rough idea how many people have signed up?
About 60 people right now.
Okay.
So far, we've had payments every day. Could be one or two
Okay.
online, but it's getting there.
Some adoption, that's good. Okay.
And I suppose, Chad, this is probably the proper point in the agenda to talk about the phone call that you and I got from Steve Burnett about why is there no fluoride in the Oskaloosa water? And, you know, certainly that's something that Des Moines Water Works struggled with, what, about 2 years ago? Where there was a group of people, of their customers, that wanted them to remove the fluoride
Yep.
from their water, and certainly there was a number of dentists and professors at the dental school at the University of Iowa, and just a large number of people that stepped up and said, no, you want that in there. That's good for you. Although it is a hazardous material in its
In and of
state.
itself.
So, but you were explaining to me a little bit on the phone today that we did that up until 2011 and then had an issue at the plant?
Yes.
Turbidity.
It was causing treatment issues with turbidity when the plant wasn't running, causing alarms. And it was, through trial and error, it was determined that it was the fluoride feed that was causing that issue. And that it was turned off at that point in time and not restarted once we were back online with having that filter media replaced. And so it's been maybe 5 years this month. And we have naturally occurring fluoride, but it's not, the state just got a letter today from the Department of Public Health, would like somewhere between 0.6 and 0.7 is their recommended range. this last month, I believe ours was a 0.35 average. And so some days it's higher, some days it's lower. We do have naturally occurring, but not at the limit that the Department of Public Health has recognized as being optimal range.
Therapeutic.
Yeah, whatever
To
they're.
prevent, enough to prevent.
It used to be, the standard was 1.0. And I think it was late 2010, early 2011 when they went and dropped that from 1.0 to 0.7.
When you were having the issues at the plant
Mhm.
with it, was it because of the introduction of the fluoride itself, or was it the equipment that you were using to introduce it with?
No, it was the fluoride itself. And what was going on at the time with the plant, it was the fluoride itself, it wasn't the equipment.
Because we had used fluoride.
We had, but this was as a result of that filter change out and the treatment that was going on at the time. Because the only injection point that exists at the plant for that is in the number 2 filter effluent piping. And that was completely offline as we were changing that filter media out. And as that plant went back on, as filter 2 went back on, that was quite a process, but that feed was never turned back on. And there wasn't, trying to, we kind of followed what we saw in our finished water, what we had in our raw, what was going through the plant, what we saw in the finished water. Like I said, it varied. And when they dropped, the amount that we fed on a daily basis went down considerably because of what was naturally there. So that's something that as a course of operations, it was not turned back on.
Okay. So it clogged up the media in your filter bed.
No, it was reacting negatively with the pipe that was fed through. It was sitting there and we were having negative reactions when it was pulling through for the turbidimeters. It was fed after filtration, not before the filtration.
Prior to where you're reading turbidity levels.
Right. Right. And that, where that is pulled from, I don't have access to because it's down in the clear well. That was piping that was changed during the rehabilitation project 2008, 2009. So I don't have access to change the sampling point without shutting everything down and draining the clear well completely. Is it possible to turn it back on and look at that? It's possible. There's also through Delta Dental, there are grant monies available if we need to rehab, and we would. You know, that was a room that fluoride in its natural state that we get it was vented as a matter because it's corrosive. It off gases and it's corrosive in it. And so we would need to look at the feed equipment if that was something that the board felt was important and wanted to take that action. We would need to look at the feed equipment and the day tanks and the scales and everything that have sat in that room to get it back up and operational.
And where are those tanks and that feed operation located?
On the outside, it was the 3-room addition that was done to the plant. On the south side, it'd be the easternmost room of that 3-room addition. It's the windows all frosted as you went out there to look at it, etched from the acid in the fluoride.
So we're at half of the recommended amount.
As an average,
Naturally.
as an average, yes.
But there is no minimum required. It's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement.
It's not state
It's
law.
not.
Yeah.
It is not. It is something that is purely voluntary. And the reporting mechanism does not go through the Department of Natural Resources for this issue. It is something that goes through the Department of Public Health.
You know, probably if you were to poll the 100 citizens from the city, you would get maybe 2/3, 1/3 in
Yeah.
favor of having it in.
Yeah. Where I lived before, Kansas, the Wichita had such a poll where they polled, do you want to add fluoride or not? And the measure actually failed, but it was very close. I would call it a 50-50 split, the edge going to not to add. So I know public opinion varies on this, and I don't know, would public opinion need to be asked for in order to add it back in, since it was already, a precedent was set that we had added in the past.
You know, and I think, just from what I remember reading in the newspaper, is the only research I've ever done on this.
Yeah.
So you take that for what it's worth, but certainly it sounds like the science behind having the fluoride in the water says that there is a direct benefit to better dental health.
Yeah, and that's my understanding as well.
And if the city was putting fluoride in to begin with, that would indicate to me that discussion had been held at some point.
Or
Where
it
the
was a
community,
yeah.
either a board or someone said, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of disturbing to have it shut off. I don't know if the board was made aware of it at the time. Do you remember, Chad?
Unless it was part of the update on the general manager's update when we were going through the filter process. That's been 5 years ago.
Yeah, when Steve called me about it, I said, well, we had fluoride. He said, no, you don't. I said, yeah, we do. We've always done that. No, we don't. Oh, so I called Chad. Chad said, no, we don't.
Yeah, the Department of Public Health says we're the largest community
Without adding fluoride. Okay. And the state, we're not abnormal to have naturally occurring at just 0.003. Anybody that is getting that amount is adding more to it to get to 0.006.
It's, it depends. There are communities across the state that actually have to remove it to have too much.
Okay.
Okay.
So, in order to do this, would we need to get Garden involved and?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that was, that redesign was done with fluoride in mind. That room was specifically built for fluoride. The corrosive nature of that chemical has rendered the fan in that room, the day tank scale, and there's a number of pieces of equipment that acid has ruined that would need to be replaced to move forward. That was something that we studied with Garden after that plant was built and functional because of the off-gassing, because of the corrosion problems that we were seeing. It was something that was never remedied as part of that process. Within a month of the windows going in, they were etched to the point where you couldn't see them.
But was the concern more from the corrosion aspect or the turbidity?
The turbidity aspect of the plant, just looking at the equipment side of it, there's a corrosion aspect. Operationally, it was causing turbidity issues.
And is it because that room is not properly vented?
Well, it's properly vented. According to the design, according to Garden, that room is properly vented. It's designed similar to the Delta plant.
It's just part of the deal that you gotta replace that stuff on a
Well,
fairly regular
but
basis.
just the off-gassing that occurs that we've seen has ruined a lot of equipment in there.
When you vent that
Vents,
chloride,
vents to atmosphere.
Don't you have to check with that, or doesn't EPA get involved for off gas? It's not like a paint fume or
Mm-mm.
solvent fume.
It's not. That's never been an issue.
Just don't want to park your car close by.
Yeah. I always used to see in Pella, those trucks sitting by the coal plant.
Yeah.
This plant did this to my truck.
Yeah.
But there isn't any way to seal that, to protect the equipment, the windows, that sort of thing?
No, there's not.
What does it cost on a monthly basis to add fluoride?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been long enough ago that I.
Because it's something we haven't paid for, because we haven't used it.
You know, Kevin, when we were putting it in there, I don't remember it being
Being
a
a
huge
big
line
line
item on the payables. that-
Not like chlorine or, what's one of our big hitters?
Lime, it's not like lime, no,
Lime,
it's not like
yeah,
lime, but
yeah.
it would be similar to chlorine or sodium aluminate or the
Yeah.
polyphosphate that we feed. It would be something similar along those lines.
Yeah, like I say, I don't remember it being a
Large line.
scary number.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that something that we can afford to do if we want to do it.
Was this topic brought to council or staff by the Department of Public Health?
It was me and the Councilmember Burnett, but informal,
Informal.
by two separate Department of Health employees.
That's how you knew that we're the largest community that does not have fluoride.
The question was raised at a family event,
Okay.
family member who works there, and they said, did you know?
Well, and from a personal standpoint, you know, just knowing that my grandchildren, some of them live here in town, it'd be nice to help them prevent tooth decay.
So Chad, you talked about turbidity, as the board might recall, there was an issue of turbidity which led to a notice
Mhm.
being published. So the board's direction is to go forward back to adding fluoride. The testing process before we go live, that'll have to be perfected before we start the distribution
I don't know that,
process.
I don't know that there's,
As close to perfected as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't, yeah.
Because I think the board has to understand that there could be an issue, and
Oh, yeah.
would they do notification?
Would it be possible?
the turbidity notice for this is a little bit different in that, this one isn't an acute, problem. It's more of it's not necessarily chronic either, but we have a range. And the DNR allows up to 5% of our normal samples to be over a 0.3 NTU for turbidity. And once you get over that 5% of those readings, then the notice has to go out. And that's one of the things that we've seen before. So, and I think at the time, 5 years ago, we'd probably done one or two of those mailings because we hit that window. But it's for the month. And so, you know, it would be something where we would have the ability to turn that on, turn the feed on and see what happens, as long as it wasn't something that threw us clear out of range. You know, we can't, at any point in time, we can't be over a 1.0. That water cannot come to town. I cannot send that to town. Or we go through this whole public notification thing again.
Yeah.
So, right, and so I think there's the ability to look at a window of opportunity for turning this feed system back on and operating it for a time to see what happens. But it means getting everything up and running ahead of that, so.
It sounds like there's enough discussion here that maybe next board meeting, we should have a line item to discuss this further. Do you think
I
that's
think so.
acceptable?
I think so.
Outline some opportunities or
And give
Action
Chad and
items.
his staff a chance to think about.
assess what the facilities are, look like.
What the opportunities are for either using the system as it sits or modifications that need to be made, and also probably get an estimate in regards to what the equipment cost would be to replace the equipment that you need. So other than that, I'm not aware of any other customer forum issues. Anybody else have anything? Okay, so moving on, agenda item number 7, discussion of wastewater operations.
There was a meeting last Thursday with Fox Engineering and Department of Natural Resources staff and Akilesh and myself looking at the flows and loads with regard to what Fox has kind of put together and looking at the life of the plant. They're kind of, at this point, it's projected out to 2040, any work that they would do. And so looking at numbers that Mike had provided as far as population projections and what that would do to flows and organic loading. The meeting, I don't know, lasted about an hour and a half. They were relatively happy with kind of the direction that Fox had gone with things, and there would be a formal, I can't think of the word here. They would send out the different schedules and stuff to the DNR shortly with what was going to be proceeding. That way they looked at each plant on its own and then a combined plant and what flows would be. So just to have options. The staff has started on the last round of the nutrient sampling for that facility plan. It's 2 weeks. It's about a $22,000 or $3,000 session of testing each time they go through there. So when this one's done, the Keystone will be appreciative, I'm sure.
They are the cheapest.
And they are.
In case anybody has a question. Chad asked about the price.
Yeah, we have looked at 2 other labs as well in the state that could handle that. So, then I did include the updated sheet in your packets as far as going through the 28E and what was done, what wasn't done. Obviously, it's the one I printed out is black and white. The darker color would be a red, and the lighter color would be a green, is what was talked about last month.
I was trying to remember in the headings which dates are in the range of quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4.
Well, I would have July, August, and September is Q1 because I would base it on a fiscal year. Is what I would presume as we were going through this.
So this would be end of year, fiscal year.
This would be an end of fiscal year. Here's where we were at.
15, 16.
Yes.
And so these boxes that would be red, Chad,
Yes.
with the zeros in them.
Well, and so the zeros popped up in a box that if I had an X, so on the lift station maintenance, in Q2 there's an X, but in Q1 there's a 0, and so that's red. Well, we didn't have this in place the first quarter of last year, so I think that auto-generated those zeros.
What about when you get down to like
So there's like
line replacements or root foaming?
well, the root foaming isn't something that we've done at any point, and that's
It is that something?
It's just a type of treatment.
It's, yeah, I mean, it's kind of an as-needed, it's something that, in talking to staff, we've kind of identified some areas that we'd like to do some root foaming. But we've got to get some numbers and look at what we've got available for budget as well.
Sure.
But,
It's in lieu of cutting, root cutting, preventative, it's more preventative than it is.
So it may or may not be needed.
Oh, it's needed.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's,
Okay.
yeah, there's the,
It's one of the tools that we use
right.
to make
And-
things.
But it's not something that is necessarily done on a scheduled,
It could be, if established, and I think that's the thing, we haven't used it before. But I think we want to explore that and understand the cost of it is probably the first step. We have areas where we could use it.
Yeah, there are definitely areas of the collection system that need attention that way. It's a matter of where are our priorities, what else are we trying to get done, and
money do we have?
how much money do we have to tackle some things.
And again, we can talk about $50,000 worth of lab testing, those are the types of expenses that may not have been completely budgeted for, but we're having to absorb into the system.
Is there a 1-minute description of what root foaming is?
It's non-invasive to the pipe material itself, but they would go in one manhole and push. It kind of looks like shaving cream through. It's a chemical that will soften up the root balls and stuff that are in there and kill them off for a while. It doesn't kill the tree, but it still will eat away at those roots. And so then given the understanding I have is 4 or 5 months, if you let that sit in there, if you come back 4 or 5 months later, you can jet through that line and those roots will disintegrate away and can be jetted out and vacked out without adverse effects. And then we're not having to, there's a couple different cutters that the staff uses to go through, but those can be hard on the pipe as well, depending on which head and pressure and stuff we're using. And so it's, but it costs money. And I mean, it's, I have had at least one outfit come in and look at what we could do for that. But again, as money is a huge issue, we've pushed resources elsewhere. We're jetting and cutting where we can with the machinery that staff has at their disposal at this point.
Now, when you're talking, are you talking storm sewer or?
This is sanitary. The storm doesn't have as much of an issue with roots getting into it because there's not the flow through it on a continual basis that the roots would find useful.
Should
Hopefully. Right. And if there is, maybe, we need to go spend a little time looking for a leak. So,
Mike, as I'm looking at this report, would the city think that we're meeting all aspects of the 2080 agreement?
I'm looking to him more than, there's obviously, you can only do so much, and maybe you have someone prepared for that, but
No, I don't. But I guess what I do is I don't know what a 0 versus a green X means. So I look in Q2, October, November, December. As far as lift station maintenance goes, we've got green X's in there. We haven't started the month of October yet. So what does that mean?
this is last fiscal year. This is the closeout
Oh,
of 15,
okay.
16.
So I should be looking over in the right-hand column. Yes, okay. For Q4.
Yes, and that would have been April, May, and June.
So then, just to make sure I understand then, so we have areas on the top, 5 lines, for example, where we have standard operating procedures documented that was to be initiated by October 1 of 2015. That's showing up in red. Does that mean it hasn't been started?
It's been started. Staff has started on that, but they're not all documented.
Okay. So could there be some sort of a,
Yeah.
perhaps a yellow?
In
Did we
process,
did
yeah.
we do a yellow? I feel like
Yeah,
on the
I think
conditional
we have
formatting, we,
like
like
a
a,
Y or something, command that can be used. that would generate a yellow. That means in process or working. So I think that can be done.
Yeah, so I think that would be very useful for the board as well as for the city council in understanding that, because I'm sure we've got members on our council who are going to say, look at all the stuff that isn't done yet.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, as I'm sitting here looking at this too. You know, and I realize that some of it is stuff that, I mean, it's just stuff that what was one of them here that I read, service and liaison between the city, the DNR, and the EPA.
Yep.
I mean, if that was me filling this out, that'd be great. I'll do that if you need me to.
Yep, yep, check the box.
Just don't need
Yep.
to.
Yeah, so I mean, I got approached, Thursday, last week, by a gentleman who wanted to know if there was a preventive maintenance program that was in place for the equipment of the combined operation. And I said I didn't think so. Now, was that an accurate statement on my part?
Yeah, that would be an accurate statement. Yeah.
What was the statement?
Now, is there a preventive maintenance program that is in place for the equipment? So scheduled oil changes for equipment that's in use, or periodic lubrications.
Yeah, I mean, some of that we've talked about, there's different software packages.
Formalized. I would say some of that stuff is in place, but it's not formalized.
Right, it's,
But there are definitely gaps in that. And that was known to us a couple of years before we, from the sewer side, before we even went into this partnership. That was going to be the goal of the next director to get that up and running.
Yep.
So I don't know that that's necessarily this group's fault. That hasn't been accomplished yet. It's just going to take time.
But any of these that are just procurement policy followed, you know, should that be green or should that be yellow? Certainly not red.
Yeah, well, is there a procurement policy?
the city has procurement policy that,
The
Yeah.
contract says that
Yeah,
it will be
and-
followed.
Okay, so,
I mean, generally speaking, the answer is yes, it's followed. There have been
Okay.
hiccups, but that's same for
oh, yeah.
every organization.
Yeah.
You know, operations maintained within established budget parameters. Should that be red? I don't think so.
I mean, I guess anything that would either be blank or an X or something, there could be a quick note off to the side that just kind of explains why it is not complete or there's a reason why it's not met,
Yeah,
especially on a year end.
yeah, that would go a long ways. You know, just, you know, it's a tall order to fulfill what the 2080 is there. You know, on the other hand, that was the agreement.
So, Mike, you asked me if I also would say, does the board think it's fulfilled its responsibility?
Well, you know,
And I think that's what we have to work through.
Yeah, it's hard for us to, for me anyway, I don't know about the other four members of the board, but it's hard for me to wrap my arms around this to know just exactly where we do stand.
Hopefully this will help on
Yes.
a regular basis, but I think that's got to become more of the discussions here.
But I think it really needs to be done so that we can look at this and understand exactly what we are doing and what we're not doing, so we can identify where we got to work.
So one of the questions that I had was, when would a report be made to the council on this exact issue as far as compliance with the 2080 agreement? Is it the end of the fiscal year, or is it 1 year into the contractual relationship, which is October? It doesn't really matter, I guess, is the final follow-up to that.
Well, I guess I would like to do it after the end of 1 year and come in. That'll give us a chance to go through this and get this.
Okay. Yeah, so probably around October-ish?
Yeah.
Okay. Which,
Just for a
Yeah.
report on the progress.
yeah, so as of, let's see, I don't remember if there was any particular day in October that we signed that thing. Was it effective November 1 or? was it-
October 1.
October 1, okay.
First meeting, first Monday of October.
Yep.
I would just, somewhere in October. Council, we also have study sessions scheduled out from here until past Christmas.
Yeah.
Wow, lucky you guys.
Yeah.
But you want to do this at one of your study sessions, or do you want to do this at a council meeting?
This is a big enough deal. I think a regular city council meeting would be a worthwhile thing. The dealings that put together the 2080, that was well covered by the media, so I think it'd be fair for the taxpayers and ratepayers to get a full-blown presentation if they wanted to tune into it. They could do it.
I'll try to keep my PowerPoint presentation less than 50 slides.
50 slides and no more than 1 hour of oral where you just get off and just say whatever's on your mind. Is that a problem?
Actually, I'm going to be out of town, and my secretary can handle it.
There we go. Yeah. The secretary says, what Mike would have said here.
All right, Chad, anything else on that?
On the facility plan, the DNR has been sticklers about compliance with the original
Schedule.
schedule, and we continue to request additional time to defer
The chlorine
Yeah,
implementation.
yeah, because it doesn't line up with when our plan would be done. Like 3 or 4 months.
They want it by December 31st of this year, and we're turning the facility plan in. I believe March 17th is the date that we've got to turn the facility plan in to the DNR. And we would like to have those dates line up so that we could also turn the chlorination study in March 17th, because the DNR doesn't even require us to chlorinate until March 15th of any given year. So, and there's several different factors with the players in this. The gentleman that wrote the permit were new in what they were doing, and we were informed that we aren't the only one that don't have dates that line up. The city's asked on a couple different occasions, sent in the fee through the engineers to ask for that, had the check returned, and said, well, it's not a big enough deal to worry about because you won't be in non-compliance. However, at this meeting last week, the window for non-compliance with the DNR is 90 days, and by waiting until March 17th from whenever this was supposed to be turned in, it's actually 105 days. So we would have a 15-day window where we would be in non-compliance. So the discussion was that we were going to try and go back and reapply for essentially a variance, just to get them to realign the dates for this facility plan and the chlorination study. They're really, the people that wrote the permit are unwilling at this point to
Do the work that.
consider this because they've got a whole bunch of work to go through for public notice and public hearings and stuff if they were to grant this.
It's 90-day extension.
Well, it'd be 105 day to line things up, yes. And they're unwilling at this point to want to take that effort and move forward.
Their comments are, go ahead and don't worry about it.
Yeah,
It'll be
it's-
fine. And I have no interest in.
We don't want to be non-compliant.
Right. Are they putting that in an email
They
to
won't.
you?
No, no.
We've asked for it already.
Yeah.
And
And they laughed at you.
Why would
They
we do
just-
that?
And you have, again, there's different players in this. And so some of the players are understanding of our position and what we're trying to accomplish, and are behind us on trying to get the dates lined up. So I guess without really pointing any fingers, just we are trying to move forward and ask for another shot at having the dates lined up.
And if they don't line the dates up,
The engineers essentially will be throwing a good report after a bad report. I mean, they'll put something together, but it won't be effectual, because the facility plan will come out and it might have different information in it that negates what was turned in for this chlorination study. And it's,
And that would be an additional cost to the city too.
Sure.
so,
So then you add into that the stormwater issues that we have, and we still have compliance work to be done there. I guess my understanding was we were one of the top communities for stormwater infiltration into our system. And not a good report back, but it happens. So we clearly want to correct those issues, which have an impact on what's designed as far as a new treatment facility. And I don't know that they're necessarily giving us a lot of leeway with that either. And so we'd like to see more time to correct the I&I issues, but I don't think that's happening.
No, I
Garden
don't.
had put together a rough estimate of improvements of about $7.5 million, which will need to be made in a couple of years, basically.
Right.
So, it's going to be brutal. They're not only talking about construction issues, but we're talking about time to transfer inspections within homes. People who don't comply with that would be subject to violation, fines, penalties. So I mean, we're going to have to do more of like what Knoxville is doing and some of the other communities that have been forced to comply with the EPA DNR mandates, which we're doing as well. So before you sell that house, not pay a footing
I've never
inspection.
sold one without an inspection. Guess that's why my name's more places than other people's.
Yeah.
How many days notice did we have to give you on that 2080 if we want to get out of it? Years, as I remember. Oh,
On the wastewater side, in terms of water consumption, the southwest plant is consuming water and the northeast plant is not. Why?
the meter in the northeast plant is
Not functional.
non-functional.
Okay.
And it's something that we don't get a return on investment, and it's going to cost me in excess of $2,000 to replace that one meter.
Is that,
So
is
as we,
that lost water then?
yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
It would be unaccounted non-revenue water.
Okay.
You know, in the sense of we're looking at what we're going to do with those facilities, changes we need to be making.
Do we put $2,000 into a plant that we're going to rebuild anyways, is what you're saying, right?
Or what are we going to do with it? Does it need to be accounted for? Yes, it does need to be accounted for. Not to make light of that issue at all. It's just it's hard. It's a hard decision for me to want to invest in excess of $2,000 on a meter that we'll get no return on, as the city is not charged. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on agenda item number 7? None heard, moving on, agenda item number 8, consideration and discussion of pay application number 1 for DeLong Construction.
In your packets is pay application number 1. Garden has, it's been submitted by DeLong Construction, reviewed by Garden, and then sent on. The original contract price is shown as $401,305. It does show the $1,000 change order, bringing the current contracted price up to $402,305. So far on this project, they're showing between completed and stored that they've got $154,579.20. The 5% retainage figures out to $7,728.96. Subtracting that from the total completed and stored brings us to a pay application of $146,850.24.
was a culvert.
Yeah, it was a culvert that was corrugated metal pipe that was junk.
Okay.
So did that thing get replaced with the same corrugated steel, or what was the new material?
No, we did not use corrugated steel. I don't remember if we used triple wall when they went back in there.
Plastic.
Yeah, triple wall plastic. And DeLong's had actually looked for, they thought maybe they had some used sitting on their home site, and went and checked and didn't, and so we ended up, they called the vendor and brought in a new piece to replace that.
Yeah, I don't profess to know a lot about what the new materials are that are being used for various applications, and so I'm always curious as to if plastic is in favor and how that compares in price to the corrugated steel, that sort of thing, versus concrete or whatever else.
Yeah, and this was worked through with Garden as well, and they're keenly aware of the city's requirements. And so whatever was installed would have met city requirements as well, so.
Sounds good. I was just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
Plastic is
remember.
probably a little less expensive than the steel. And I know the plastic's been approved by most Department of Transportations around the country.
Yep.
That use it
Yep.
all over.
And I would expect it to wear a little better as well.
No, so
Year in, year
out
out.
the road.
Yeah. As long
I
as it's
think
installed right.
The load resistance may be even a little better on it.
Sounds good.
All right, any other comments, questions, concerns? I'll make a motion to approve the pay application number 1 for DeLong Construction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 9,
Scratch.
scratch. Agenda item number 10, consideration and discussion of engineering services for K Avenue East and Sheriff Avenue water main replacements.
Okay, the city is moving forward with plans next budget year to do street rehabilitation on K Avenue East from North Market to North Third, and on Sheriff Avenue from North Market to North Third. And as such, we have water mains in both of those streets. The one on Sheriff specifically has caused this issue. It would be something that we'd have staff do in-house. It's, you know,
Both of
we're
these
talking-
projects?
Both of these projects, they're 3-block stretches. It's, obviously, staff is very capable of completing this work. However, it still needs to be engineered.
Why is Fox 1/5 the cost of Garden and 1/3 the cost of Bean Street Chem?
My discussion with Fox was he wasn't gonna sharpen his pencil very much. This was had the day that we'd had the meeting with the DNR, right? I'd spoken to one of their engineers as we were on our way out about this specific project. They were just gonna use aerial photography and draw in rough estimation of where Maine was gonna go. They're not gonna go out and shoot the topography and try and get the rise and fall and everything. And it's not necessary for the DNR. If we were bidding the project, that would be something obviously we would want to give the contractors a little bit more of a heads up on. But as we were doing it all internally, essentially, we look at, it has to be designed and it has to be signed off on by engineers. The city engineer has the ability to do it, but he's swamped. So, not throwing anything else on his plate at this point in time. So, the 3 engineering firms that I talked to, I was very surprised when the numbers came back. And this would just be something that would give us the ability to get the construction permit from the DNR and move forward with getting the work accomplished. And it is something that talking.
Did Garden understand what they needed, what would be required?
Yeah. Yeah, I told him that we were gonna have, we were having staff do it. And he had 5,000 to 6,000 for one stretch and 5,000 for the other. So that's your 10 to 11,000. And I guess I didn't share with him that it was a competition. You guys have said to me that you want to make sure that we're getting fair and balanced numbers, and so I went and asked these other firms what they could do.
Okay.
I agree with the process.
Yeah, so do
You know,
I.
And is there any, I know we're not, the city engineer is heavily overloaded, but is there a way to understand, you know, if the city engineer was to do this, what his cost would be? Or do we forecast or budget or?
They end up
that way?
taking on 1 or 2 projects every year, generally road projects. They have done some storm sewer projects. I don't think we've done sewer recently. Could we? Yeah, we could estimate that. This project will be designed by Garden for us, just because of the feedback I've received from council about using a local firm. So we don't necessarily seek other bids.
So legality of bidding process. It doesn't have to go.
Professional services doesn't have to, correct, engineering services. So we could, but if, at this point, we wouldn't be doing that work. I think the idea is once we get another engineering technician on board, if we can get somebody recruited, then that, in theory, could free up Keelish or Nate to help us with that. I think then it's a matter of just doing some survey work and having Keelish sign on on it. I'm making it much simpler than it probably is, but
Yeah.
but I think going forward, that's the idea, is that if there are projects that we can do in tandem, we need to do them in-house, and then we can bill you for our time.
Well, and going outside, I don't have any problem with, but it's good to understand the internal price versus the external price, and knowing that if maybe that can't justify another engineer's salary, or if you get enough of those projects lined up, you can internalize and potentially save money overall.
And that's why we proposed having an engineer technician, just because paying Garden Associates 10 to 15% for construction services management we could pay for a position with one project for a full year. And we had that discussion here as a group, and sometimes you have to use the services. But
That's basically what that 18,000 was in
Pretty
this
close.
month's pay,
It's pretty close.
was for construction service management.
correct,
Yeah.
$2,000 is a smoking deal.
Yeah, it is.
We're,
Yeah.
I think
And-
we have a relationship with them, and I think
Third
cutting
Street.
through some of this stuff, you'll hear from Garden.
Yeah.
As a board, you're gonna hear from them.
Yeah.
I do think that Fox is doing good work for us. We're pleased with what they've been doing so far. I think they're trying to help out. You know how it can be.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem taking a $2,000 quote from them, running with it. If it gets us what we need, and that's that.
And you're
Well,
comfortable
and
with
given, I'm comfortable with what.
what they'll provide?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're not a fly-by-night outfit.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
And given that
Uh,
we've got a tight budget anyway,
Yeah.
$90,000 for both of these projects, to spend a ninth of that on engineering
Helps a bunch.
ties my hands.
Yeah, yeah,
So if I can only spend,
yeah.
Well, we've had this conversation with Garden before about maybe your price is a little,
and not to discount the fact that there are a number of things that they will provide that we aren't charged for. I don't want to discount that by any sense of the imagination. Just making sure that everything is equal at the end of the day.
It's a
But
nice
do they
opportunity.
fund- Go ahead.
I would just say it's a nice opportunity. Again, they're gonna have a lot of work ahead of them. It's not like,
Do they find themselves as, because we want to use local, do they find themselves as the only duck in the puddle?
I don't know
They
that
take all the prime ones, yeah.
They just don't get real aggressive, I think. You know,
And we've sent plenty of work their way, so.
There's a lot of non-billable hours,
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
billable hours.
Yeah.
It's a balance. And I don't think it, my opinion is it doesn't hurt every now and then to have other people do
A
some
little
work.
competition doesn't hurt anything.
and especially if you're gonna do it with a potential $10,000
Exactly.
as opposed to a
Yeah, this isn't a huge
$70,000.
Yes, yes.
370,000.
Yeah. Yeah. The risk is a lot
I
higher.
forget what it was when we did the water plant, but it was
$750,000.
just in engineering services.
Get ready for a big one with the wastewater plant.
Yeah, definitely. I'd make a motion to go ahead and accept the proposal from Fox.
I second it.
$2,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda item number 11, general manager's update.
We do have people that have started using an online payment option. Bills have gone out towards the end of June for all of the customers. Had the local media that covered it, which did cause some phone calls, cause some emails, people coming in asking questions. Staff has been busy as that switches happen, and the foot traffic is increased and all of that as we expected. And so we're trying to stay above board on everything and keep our head above water, even if it's just one nostril sticking out maybe sometimes. But anyway, trying to get that handled and move that forward for our customers. I was recently approached by the chamber director about having the utility join the chamber. Crystal did talk with the city clerk about what the city's done, and there is a little bit of a different situation based on some things. I reached out to our auditor to ask about expending utility monies for an organization like the chamber. And the answer that I got back was, as long as you can show what the benefit for the utility is in joining the organization, he didn't have an issue with it. But he wanted to see that reflected in the minutes, that the discussion was held and there was some positives for the utility in joining that organization. You know, we're a little bit different than other businesses. We're not a realtor or a manufacturer that needs our name out. Everybody's going to use our product. So kind of the sales pitch that I received was just if the community grows, that helps the water department because it increases our sales, and helping the chamber grow allows them to go out and provide services. Now the fee was minimal based on what others have paid as far as what we talked about, but I wanted to.
What was the fee?
She talked about $200 was what was talked about. So
Annually?
annually, but they were talking about fees and stuff going up. I wanted to present that to this group to see what they thought about it. Solicit any feedback that way. I don't necessarily have an opinion other than people are going to use our product no matter what. However, if the community grows, that does help us. That does help our bottom line. So,
I'm just not much on a governmental agency being a part of a private organization.
and that the point certainly has merit. Certainly does.
Are any other utilities in the
the other utilities aren't public
Yeah,
organizations.
Rural water is I mean, rural water comes to mind because they tend to be sponsors of like different walks,
Right.
different, I mean, it's
Okay.
crazy. I can't
Yeah.
believe some of the stuff that they use their ratepayers' money for. They're a private
Yeah.
water company. I don't think it's worth the headache for $200 to even have this conversation. I think it's creative,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's appropriate, from my perspective.
Well, I like the chamber's marketing to try to get
Great
everybody
idea.
Yeah.
looking for more people, but that's what they do.
Right?
Yep, yep.
Certainly hard to wrap your arms around the benefit.
But the only person, or the only group that benefits, in my mind, is the chamber itself. And they get the $200, $300, $400, wherever it's gonna go up to every year. I mean, the city supports the chamber every time, you know, with whatever they're gonna do on the square, you know, block out the streets,
Make an annual contribution to the chamber. It's a pretty significant one.
yes.
More so than a lot of other places. I am not.
Well, even the county has a contribution to
Yeah.
the chamber.
And it's supported by a 2080 agreement where we agree these are the services they're gonna do for us.
Right.
And no, we don't get a sticker for the front door, do we? Saying that we're a member. We do, okay. Gotta be part of
We're on it. We should be on everything. Based on the contribution level from the city.
If I remember correctly, when I was on the city council, that was a pretty significant
that. Yeah,
contribution.
yep.
It's only grown over the years.
Yep.
I think it's about 47,000.
I was gonna say, I think it was like 10 or 12 at the time.
Yeah, it's been up, came back down, and I think it's drifting up a little bit.
So it sounds like
Pass.
we'll table that.
Okay. The auditors will be here the last week of July to start performing the fiscal year audit. And Crystal is working on getting everything, year-end reports and everything tidied up and ready to go so that she's prepared for
No
that.
pressure, no hype.
No extra time at all. It's
I got this.
living here, just living here.
I got
What is the
Right every day.
process?
That's right. Just
Is
helping
there
out
internal
customers.
audits or who's the auditor?
Doug Hunt,
Yeah,
Hunt and
okay.
Associates.
does he come here for a length of time?
A week.
Okay.
A week or more.
Yeah, he comes, yeah. He is here, he will be here that full week and then he'll come back in several days throughout the next
Okay.
week
And
or two.
he usually has one, if not two, assistants that are pulling different reports and checks, and it's pretty
it's
well in depth.
Annual, not quarterly.
It is annual.
Annual. They don't do it quarterly.
No.
And then roll it up to an annual. Okay.
It might be worth having a conversation with him to see if you can start tightening that up a little bit. I know with InterPower, that's an initiative we took on probably about 6 or 7 years ago, where we kept trying to peel off the 1 week, 3 people showing up to do an audit. In our case, our auditors are in California. And we're down to it now where it's 2 people, 2 days. All the rest of it is, and it's a lesson I took from Bob Alvin, brought with me out there, is you prepare all of their schedules ahead of time. And then in their case, you email them into a portal and they do the audit from their own desk. So when the time does come for them to come out, the field work is very much abbreviated. Much of the work is already done, it's just ticking and tying a few things. So if there is a reduction that can be done in the amount of sampling of invoices or some of those things, I think it's a conversation that's worth having, just to see if Mr. Hunt would be able to cut back some of his processes and procedures, get his opinion figured out using some different types of testing.
That'd be awesome, I would think.
Absolutely.
DeLong is continuing to work on installing the water main along Carbonado Road. They are behind schedule, as the update from Garden has been talking with the inspector. When we start looking at working days expended versus what they have left and where they're at in their process, they're going to have to work hard to get it done in 80 working days.
Is that due to weather or?
No, because the weather's been wonderful.
That's what I was gonna say.
It's they've had other issues going on out there, and it doesn't have anything to do on our end.
The engineering estimates are all in line.
I think they're in line. I think that they've, operational issues
Okay.
on the contractor side is a lot of what it can probably be pulled back to.
Okay.
Their first set of bacterial tests did fail. We had tried to provide a little bit of guidance, staff tried to provide a little bit of guidance on the installation and what we've seen that's worked for us. And that was not the path that they wanted to take. And that's fine, they're the contractor, they're the ones that are responsible for getting everything done. And so this first set of samples has failed, and they're not very thrilled with the fact that they have to rechlorinate the whole thing, what they've gotten installed. Yeah, it's a process with them.
Recording, is that like a gasoline that you send through that?
Well, they would, the process that they've chosen to use is to inject like a bleach through there. And they have to maintain a certain threshold of free available chlorine in that pipe for 24 hours, after which time it can be flushed. After it's flushed, it has to sit for 5 days before they collect any samples. And so then day 6 and 7, you go out and grab samples, and we're taking them up to the lab. We want that chain of custody with us.
So there is a chain
So-
of custody.
Yeah, there's chain of custody, and that stays with us so that there aren't any issues. And you know, we go out to Highway 23, passed, it's done, it's online and going. Need to thank Clow, because we did have to shut some things down for a little while to make connections on stuff, and they were without water, as well as a couple other businesses. So, but 23 is up and running, and hopefully we'll see everything dry up out there, and our unaccounted water loss will drop. That's, at this point, that's all I've got for the general manager's miscellaneous. There were 4 water main breaks this last month, and they are listed here for you. One of them was out on Carpenter Road. So
I noticed.
hopefully that's the last
Yeah.
out on Carpenter
Yeah,
Road.
I was kind of wondering whether you're going to bother to fix it.
Well,
But it was going to be a while before they were there.
yeah. Yeah, they were across the street from your house last week, boring in, so. Make sure, I think that's everything I had.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, agenda item number 13, just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Crystal, if it makes you feel better, my audits are unannounced.